Hello, Bio 406 friends. Amanda Bach here. Today, I just wanted to talk to you guys about epigenetics and schizophrenia. So this is a student instructional period on epigenetic causes of mental illness. All right, so I wanted to kind of start things off by laying a little bit of groundwork, explaining some terms before we really dive in. So first things first, what exactly is epigenetics? Traits tend to be associated with the DNA sequence, but one's phenotype can be changed by other means. This is epigenetics. These phenotypes can be passed to offspring, so children or even grandchildren, but they do dissipate after multiple generations. However, a phenotype can just be in one set of offspring. Epigenetic changes tend to be a response to the environment or an external stimulus. So this can be a single event or prolonged exposure to something. Epigenetic inheritance is divided into two main categories based on when the stimulus that causes the epigenetic changes occurs. For example, if the stimulus is poor diet, direct epigenetics would be the individual having an epigenetic response to having eaten poorly in infancy, childhood, or adulthood. However, if it was the mother's poor diet that caused the epigenetic change, it would be considered indirect epigenetics. Indirect epigenetics is then put into two different categories within indirect epigenetics and across indirect epigenetics. Going back to our example, if the poor diet in the mother occurred before getting pregnant and it influenced her eggs, this would be an example of across indirect epigenetics. If it was poor diet during pregnancy that influenced the growing fetus, then it would be within indirect epigenetics. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about was schizophrenia. A lot of people have heard the term thrown around in movies or television, but don't actually understand exactly what it is. So schizophrenia is a mental disorder that, although can be treated with medication and therapy, is incurable. So it's a chronic condition. It's relatively uncommon and it affects less than 1% of the population in the United States. The onset of symptoms can occur quite rapidly or over an extended period of time, but it really depends on the individual. Although some young children can have schizophrenic-like symptoms, most individuals do start to show symptoms between the ages of 16 and 36. The most common of these symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, thought disorder, avulsion, which is a lack of motivation, poor expression of emotions, social withdrawal, unawareness of illness, and cognitive difficulties. This list, however, is not comprehensive, and there are many other less common symptoms that schizophrenic individuals can experience. Before we dive in to looking at the correlation between epigenetics and schizophrenia, I really wanted to take a moment to talk about DNA methylation, which is a specific mechanism for epigenetic modification. This is typically what people think about when they think epigenetic modification, and it is the mechanism that does relate to our schizophrenia that we're talking about today. So what exactly does DNA methylation do? DNA methylation regulates gene expression, and it does occur in the highest concentrations in the brain. So it does make sense that we would be talking about this in relation to mental health disorders such as schizophrenia. It regulates gene expression through either recruiting proteins for gene repression or inhibiting the binding of transcription factors. So what happens is we have cytosine, which is one of the 4 bases on our DNA. There's cytosine, guanine, thymine, and adenine, but cytosine is what we're talking about. And cytosine has the addition of a methyl group, hence DNA methylation. The addition of this methyl group comes from S-adenyl methylthionine. Don't know if I'm saying that right, it's okay. And this is often just shortened to SAM. It's also catalyzed by DNA methyltransferases, so DNMTs. If you can see, I included a little bit of a diagram that kind of shows and gives a visual to this addition of the methyl group onto the cytosine. There's also DNA demethylation, which is the removal of that methyl group from cytosine so that the gene can be expressed. If this process goes awry and methylation or demethylation doesn't occur properly or at all, DNA can be incorrectly expressed or not expressed, and this expression or lack thereof can show itself often in the form of mental illnesses, especially if it's going awry in the brain.